You must be wondering how a single act of arrogance could put my mother's life on the line. Let me tell you exactly how it all began. I'll never forget that suffocating afternoon when I heard raised voices outside our front door. I rushed to see my mother's dialysis nurse, Laura, stopped in her tracks, her medical bag still slung over one shoulder. And there stood the new HOA vice president, Deborah, jabbing a manicured finger at Laura's face. The first words out of her mouth were, "This is a private community. You have no permission to park that vehicle here." My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. My mother's dialysis schedule depends on precise timing, and any delay could be life-threatening. I tried to compose myself, but seeing that sharp-faced woman wearing an HOA badge brazenly blocking our doorstep made my blood boil. How dare she threaten my mom's health over community standards? I managed to say, "Deborah, she's here for my mother's medical treatment." But Deborah just rolled her eyes and replied, "We have strict parking rules and security guidelines. No one told me a nurse was coming. If there's no official pass or prior notice, she can't just barge in." That was the moment I wanted to shout at her, but I knew I had to keep a level head. What Deborah didn't realize was that I wasn't just a concerned son. I happened to be a federal health inspector. My job was to ensure that clinics and health facilities across multiple states comply with regulations that protect patients. But I wasn't about to disclose that just yet. Sometimes the best way to gather evidence is to let people dig their own grave. So I said, "If anything happens to my mother because of this delay, we'll have a serious problem." I gently ushered Laura past Deborah, though it took some firm insistence. Inside, my mom was lying in the living room recliner, an oxygen tube under her nose. The house smelled faintly of antiseptics and medication. The heat of the day only made her breathing more labored. Laura sighed in relief as she began setting up the portable dialysis equipment. "What was that about, dear?" my mom, Eleanor, asked weakly. I forced a smile. "Just a busybody from the HOA, Mom. Don't worry. We had only moved into this gated community a few months earlier, thinking the pristine sidewalks and manicured lawns promised peace. We didn't realize how oppressive the homeowners association could be under Deborah's watch." 15 minutes later, with the dialysis underway, I stepped outside to check on Laura's car. Deborah had claimed it was parked in a no-standing zone. But ironically, the HOA hadn't provided any clear signage or visitor slots. Her car was right at the curb, and I found a large neon orange violation notice slapped onto the windshield. I took photos of the notice and the area. Karen was nowhere in sight, but her presence lingered like a bad smell. "Back inside," Laura whispered. "If I had known your HOA was this strict, I would have parked outside the gate. But there aren't any signs." My mother's eyes were closed. I nodded. "Don't worry. You're just doing your job. If the HOA can't handle a medical professional, that's on them." But inside, a fire had been lit. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The next morning, I was awakened by a loud knock. A red paper stuck from the mailbox slot. I opened the door and found Deborah again, holding a clipboard full of documents. "I need you to sign these compliance forms. Effective immediately, all visitors providing commercial services must park in designated areas. Your so-called nurse is not exempt." My voice was low. "She's a healthcare professional, not a pizza delivery driver. My mother needs these treatments regularly." Deborah lifted her chin. "Not my concern. Enforcing the rules is." Our neighbor, Maria, an older woman, peeked nervously from her window. I suspected she'd had run-ins with Deborah too. I glanced over the forms. They required 72 hours notice for any medical or therapy service provider. They threatened fines up to $200 per violation and even eviction for repeated offenses. "I'm not signing this," I said. "I'll check with my attorney. This is borderline discrimination." Deborah scoffed. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before moving here." And she stormed off. That day, I began talking to neighbors. Maria told me in whispers, "Deborah has the board wrapped around her finger. Her best friend is the treasurer. They use fines to fund some secret initiative." Another neighbor, Dave, said he was fined $100 because his granddaughter's visiting nurse allegedly blocked the sidewalk, even though it was wide enough for 3 people. This was bigger than Deborah's ego. It was a system that bullied residents under the pretense of order. By night, I pored through the HOA bylaws. I found amendments Deborah had introduced that were not only restrictive, but possibly illegal. One clause banned any external professional service without explicit HOA board approval. No exception for medical emergencies. Their financial reports were suspicious too. One line item for operating expenditures miss was unusually high. Something was off. That night, my mom looked at me. If it gets too complicated, we can move again. No, I said. You need to be close to your specialist. I won't let petty tyrants run us out. She nodded, then whispered. I heard someone say Deborah once tried to stop an ambulance because it didn't ring the gate bell. A chill ran through me. Then one night, Maria knocked on my door. She whispered, Deborah is planning something. She says the HOA is going to file a legal complaint against your mom's nurse. You'll be forced to comply or get out. I thanked her. It was time to act. The next morning, an envelope from the HOA confirmed Maria's warning. We were in violation of sections 3.2 and 4.5, restricting unapproved medical providers. The letter demanded we cease all dialysis visits unless we registered 72 hours in advance or face daily fines. I sat down at my desk. I wrote a letter on official Department of Health stationery, addressed to the HOA board, and CC'd the county health department. I cited federal statutes and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Their actions could amount to civil and criminal liability. I hand-delivered the letter to Deborah's office. She looked shocked, then sneered. I don't care if you're the Pope. We have our bylaws. But her eyes betrayed fear. I called my attorney. He assured me we had a solid case. The notices kept coming. Unauthorized health provider, non-compliant parking, unapproved foot traffic. I documented everything and sent it to both my lawyer and a reporter friend. Then one Tuesday, Laura called, panicked. They stopped me at the gate. Deborah brought 2 guards. They won't let me in. Stay there, I said, speeding home. At the gate, I found the scene as she described. I confronted them. Move aside, I said. This nurse is on official medical business. Deborah glared but relented. Fine, but I'm documenting all of this. Once inside, Laura said, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. You shouldn't have to, I replied. That night, I compiled all evidence and filed a formal complaint with the state health department and the DOJ's Office for Civil Rights. Days later, a group of residents gathered. Harold, a retired firefighter, said, We've had enough. She fined me for a tricycle in my yard. Alexis added, We pay fees to maintain, not to be bullied. We decided to act. My reporter friend scheduled a segment on overreaching HOAs. During the interview, Deborah stormed over, yelling about unauthorized media. But we were on my private property. Her tantrum was caught on camera. When the segment aired, public outrage exploded. The county scheduled a hearing. I prepared my case, backed by documents, photos, videos, and testimonies from neighbors. At the hearing, Deborah's lawyer argued for community safety, but I outlined how they obstructed life-saving care. Maria, Harold, and Alexis shared their stories too. Finally, the commissioners said the HOA's policies might conflict with federal law. I revealed I was a federal health inspector. The board was told to suspend all health-related policies and revise their charter. Soon after, a memo arrived. Deborah had stepped down. The HOA announced an internal audit. Weeks later, that audit revealed financial mismanagement. The treasurer resigned. New members were elected. New bylaws were drafted, protecting medical services. One day, I saw Deborah carrying a box from the HOA office. Our eyes met. She looked away. Later, I saw a for sale sign on her lawn. Life returned to normal. Veronica came without harassment. My mom smiled more. The neighborhood grew warmer. The state attorney general announced an investigation into the HOA's past leadership. Civil rights and financial misconduct charges loomed. That ordeal changed us. It reminded us to stand together. It proved that compassion and collective action can restore fairness. Today, the gate has a small table labeled Visitor Welcome. A sign reads, We value health, safety, and community. And if anyone ever asks how a single HOA vice president nearly endangered a woman's life, they'll learn about a community that found its voice and used it to win.